A mom having a hard time asked a stranger for a ride and never thought he was a rich CEO with a sad heart. On a stormy evening, the wind blew loudly through the quiet streets, throwing broken tree parts across the wet roads. The faint light of streetlights blinked, making strange shadows on the water puddles that had formed along the sidewalks. Inside a sleek black car, Daniel sat in the back seat, his eyes fixed on the window as raindrops raced down the glass. The day's meetings had been very hard, filled with tough talks and important choices to save his business. His shoulders hurt from all the duties, and his mind was full of problems he couldn't fix. As the car turned onto a quieter street, the driver suddenly stopped. "What is it?" he asked, his voice a bit annoyed. The driver pointed ahead. "There's someone in the road." Daniel leaned forward, looking closely through the car glass. A woman stood in the middle of the street, completely wet from head to toe, holding a small child tightly to her chest. She looked really needing help, her eyes wide with fear but also strong as she tried to keep her child safe from the heavy rain. The driver rolled down his window slightly. "Ma'am, you need to move. This is dangerous." "Please," the woman pleaded, her voice shaking. "I just need a ride, just a few blocks. My baby is cold and we have nowhere to go." Daniel watched the scene silently, his eyes narrowing as he saw the woman's messy look and the child's shaking body. The driver paused, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, but we can't help you. It's not safe." The woman's shoulders dropped, and she looked down at her child, her lips trembling. Just as she turned to walk away, the back door of the car opened. "Get in," Daniel said, his tone strong but quiet. The woman looked up, surprised. "What?" "Get in," he repeated, pointing to the seat next to him. She paused for a moment, then quickly got into the car, holding her child close. The driver looked at Daniel in the small mirror with surprised eyebrows, but said nothing as he started driving again. Inside the car, the woman sat nervously, her clothes wet and sticking to her skin. The child snuggled close to her, eyes closed, seeking warmth and comfort. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice very quiet. Daniel nodded slightly, his eyes returning to the window. "Where are you headed?" "Just anywhere safe," she replied. "I don't have a place right now." He looked at her, seeing the marks on her arms and the fear in her eyes. "What's your name?" "Emily," she said, "and this is my son Noah." Daniel put out his hand. "Daniel." She shook his hand carefully, her hold soft but real. The car continued through the streets, wet from rain, the quiet between them filled only by the sound of the storm outside. Daniel watched Emily without looking directly, seeing the tiredness shown on her face and the caring way she held her child. After a few minutes, he spoke again. "Do you have any family nearby?" She shook her head. "No, it's just us." He thought about it, then made a decision. "You're coming with me." Emily looked at him, not understanding and feeling worried in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I have a small house on my land. It's safe and it's dry. You can stay there until you plan what to do." Tears came to her eyes and she nodded thankfully. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "No need to say anything," he replied. "Just take care of your son." As the car drove into the entrance of Daniel's big house, the gates opened quietly, showing a large land surrounded by tall trees. The big house stood tall ahead, its lights shining warmly against the dark sky. The driver parked near the small house, and Daniel stepped out, holding an umbrella over Emily and Noah as they exited the car. He led them inside, showing them the small but comfortable space. "There's food in the kitchen and the bathroom is filled with needed items," he said. "Feel comfortable here." Emily looked around, her eyes wide with surprise and not believing it. "This is more than I could have ever hoped for. Thank you." Daniel offered a small smile. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." As he turned to leave, Noah reached out and touched Daniel's hand. "Thank you, mister." Daniel looked down at the boy, a quick change of feeling crossing his face. "You're welcome, Noah." He stepped out into the rain, the door closing softly behind him. Inside, Emily held her son close, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Maybe things are finally looking up." Outside, Daniel stood for a moment, the rain soaking his clothes as he stared into the darkness. Something about Emily and Noah had woke up a strong feeling inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He took a deep breath, then walked back to the big house. his mind full of fast thoughts of the unexpected meeting that had just changed his life's path. The storm passed sometime before morning, leaving a thin fog floating over the big house's land. The guest house windows shone softly in the early light, and inside, warmth finally returned to Emily's shaking arms and legs. She had barely slept, her body wrapped safely around Noah as he slept lightly beside her on the small sofa. Even though she was tired, something inside her felt calmer. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she was not afraid of what the next hour might bring. Later that morning, Daniel returned to check on them. He stood in the doorway of the guest house for a long moment, observing the simple view. Emily, now dressed in a borrowed sweater from the housekeeper, carefully giving Noah cereal with a spoon while singing a soft song so quietly it could barely be heard. There was a calmness in her actions, a gentle way from lasting through hard times, not from being rich. "Would you consider staying here for a while?" Daniel asked after a pause. Emily turned, surprised. I don't want to be a bother." "You need a steady life, a secure spot, and the house needs someone to help around. Cleaning, cooking, handling daily tasks. I can offer you that." She looked at him unsure, feeling pulled between self-respect and deep need. "You'd trust a stranger in your home?" "I've let one into my car," he said in a cool, factual way. "The rest is an easy step." She smiled faintly. "Then yes, thank you. I'll work hard. I promise." And she did. Over the next several weeks, Emily got into a routine. She woke early, helped the housekeeper with breakfast preparations, organized rooms, washed linens, and swept floors. Noah got used to it fast, learning to play quietly in the garden, often watched by Daniel's guards, who had been told to let him move freely. Emily stayed away from Daniel. She was polite, silent, never entering his office without knocking, never staying more than needed. But Daniel noticed everything. The way she always folded napkins perfectly, the way she stopped cleaning to pick up Noah's toys carefully, something many wouldn't do, the way she talked to the plants as she watered, as if they needed comforting too. He found himself watching her more than he planned to. Once he saw her stand under the morning light shining through the kitchen windows, eyes closed, just breathing. Another time he saw her dance slowly in the hallway with Noah in her arms, moving gently to music only they heard. And then came the night he couldn't forget. It was nearly midnight. Daniel had been walking back and forth in his study, unable to sleep, memories hurting his chest as they did on very quiet nights. He decided to get some tea, anything to fill the quiet. As he entered the kitchen, he stopped suddenly. Emily was there. The kitchen light made a soft shine over the room. She was seated on the floor, back against a cabinet, her arm wrapped safely around Noah, who was snuggled on her lap under a light blanket. She had fallen asleep sitting up, head leaned against the wall, her other hand still holding a partly folded cloth. Daniel stepped forward quietly, bending down to pull the blanket higher over the child. He paused for a moment, his hand paused just over the boy's face. Then his eyes moved to Emily. Her hair had come undone, her lips open in sleep, her face calm but tired. There was something special about the picture. Mother and child, snuggled in the warm borrowed place, not knowing the man was kneeling next to them. Daniel reached down, softly touching the blanket's edge, moving it to cover Noah's bare feet. His fingers lightly touched Emily's hand. She moved, eyes slowly opening, and their eyes met. I didn't mean to fall asleep here," she whispered, quickly sitting up. "He had a bad dream, and I just—" "It's all right," Daniel said softly. He straightened up. "The kitchen's warm, it makes sense." Emily smiled softly, brushing hair from her face. "I'll take him back." Daniel paused. "You can leave him here for now, just make sure you rest, too." As he turned to leave, he paused at the doorway and looked back. Her eyes were still on him, and in that quiet, brief moment between them, something changed. Not said, not called by name, but deeply felt. Mornings came softer now. The once cold, plain hallways of Daniel's grand big house had slowly felt a new beat, one marked by the smell of cinnamon in the air, the soft sound of bedtime songs coming from the garden, and the soft noise of dishes being washed by hand instead of machine. Emily had become a part of the home, not just a visitor, not just a worker, but something warmer, like the house itself liked her being there. She moved calmly with the clear goal, sweeping the hallways, moving curtains to let in more sunshine, putting herbs in the ground outside the kitchen window, and making plain breads that made the rooms feel full of feelings they didn't want to talk about. There was a new gentleness in the air, one Daniel noticed without understanding at first. It was the gentleness of life returning to a place that had been stuck in the past. He began spending more time at home. At first, it was not planned. A late meeting canceled, a phone call taken from the library instead of the office. Then it became on purpose. He stayed at the breakfast table just a moment longer, walked past the kitchen when he didn't need to, paused in the hallway to listen to Noah giggling in the garden as Emily taught him how to press flowers between pages of an old book. He started noticing details he had not noticed for years, the way Emily always sang quietly to herself when she cooked, the way she tied her hair up differently depending on the task, loose when she baked, tight when she cleaned, in a braid when she gardened. The way Noah's laughter bounced off the fancy halls as if it was meant to be there. And every time she laughed, a true laugh, not one that was pretended, Daniel felt a pull in his heart, like something hidden had moved. They began speaking more, not just about groceries or chores, but about books, old movies, childhood dreams. Emily shared stories of her teenage years in a small town, how she once wanted to become a florist, how she loved rainy days because they made the world feel smaller and safer. Daniel listened, really listened. He told her things too, carefully chosen, carefully kept secrets. That he hated fancy parties, that his favorite time of day was just before sunrise when everything felt still, that he didn't think things were set to happen, but he sometimes wondered if certain meetings were meant to be. But he never talked about his past, not the true story. One afternoon, while Emily was taking care of the rose bushes behind the house and Daniel watched from the study window, he caught sight of Noah sitting with legs crossed nearby, drawing in the dirt with a stick. Emily looked up at her son and smiled, brushing a curl from his forehead. And Daniel felt something hurt inside him, something almost like a wish for something. That evening, over a simple dinner she had made, a roast chicken with rosemary and garlic potatoes, they sat in the kitchen, just the two of them, after Noah had fallen asleep. "Everything all right at work?" she asked in a relaxed way, pouring tea. Daniel nodded. "Same as always, numbers, meetings, headlines." Emily smiled. "You make it sound so exciting and fancy." "It's not." She leaned back in her chair, watching him. "You know," she said after a moment, "from the outside, you look like someone who has it all." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And what does that mean?" "I mean," she paused, picking her words carefully, "the house, the cars, the company. You have more than most people could ever wish for." He said nothing, waiting. "But sometimes," she continued, softer now, "you look sadder than I've ever felt. And I've had some very lonely days." Daniel didn't blink. Emily kept looking at him but didn't ask more. Her voice had carried no blame, just wonder, maybe even worry. After a long pause, Daniel finally said, "Things are not always what they seem." Then he stood, his cup untouched. "I have to get back to some calls," he said, his voice hard to tell what he was feeling. Emily didn't stop him. But that night, as he sat alone in his study, staring at the fire making soft noises, her words kept playing in his head. "You look sadder than I've ever felt." And for the first time in a long time, Daniel wondered if it was obvious to everyone, and if maybe, just maybe, someone like her could see past the fake front he had kept for years. The late afternoon sun shone gently through the tall windows of the study, making long, dark shapes across the shiny wood floor. A quiet calm filled the air, broken only by the sometimes a soft sound of leaves outside and the ticking of an old clock on the wall. Emily had spent the better part of the morning cleaning and tidying the room, Daniel's private office, usually not allowed, but left open today. She moved carefully, wiping the shelves and making papers neat. Noah, as always, followed closely behind, carrying a toy car and talking quietly to himself. As Emily turned to straighten a picture in a frame on the bookshelf, she didn't notice Noah reach up to the low cabinet where a small wooden object sat. It was a handmade model of a house made with great care, its roof a bit dull, its sides gently worn by age. For Noah, it looked like the perfect toy. "Look, Mommy," he said, holding it up with both hands. Emily turned, her heart jumping. "Noah, put that down!" At that moment, the door to the study swung open, and Daniel stepped inside. He stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on the thing in Noah's hands, and in an instant, his whole face changed. His jaw became firm, his voice came harsh, louder than Emily had ever heard him. "Don't touch that!" Noah's smile disappeared. His hands trembled, and he dropped the model with a little surprise sound. The little boy's face twisted up as he ran into Emily's arms, crying hard. She held him close without thinking, holding him close as she looked up at Daniel, her eyes wide with shock. "He didn't mean to," she said, her voice full of strong feeling. "He's just a child." Daniel's breathing was not steady. For a long moment he stood still, fists held tight, then turned and walked out of the room without another word. That evening, after Noah had cried himself to sleep, Emily paused outside the door of Daniel's study. Her hand stayed just above the doorknob, unsure if she should knock. But something, guilt, concern, or the memory of the look she'd seen in his eyes, made her go forward. She opened the door slowly. Daniel didn't notice her at first. He sat on the side of the leather chair, the lights turned down low. In his hands was the wooden house, now whole again. He ran his fingers along its roof, the way someone might follow the shape of a memory. Emily stood quietly by the doorway, watching. Finally he spoke, his voice low, a bit harsh. It was the final gift from them. She stepped closer, her footsteps very quiet. "My parents," he continued. "They had it made when I got accepted into college. Said it was a sign. Make something that will stay, Daniel, they told me." His lips became a tight line. "They died 2 weeks later. Car crash. Drunk driver." Emily's breath got stuck in her throat. "I was supposed to have dinner with them that night," he said, voice quieter now. "But I canceled. I had a meeting. I thought there would be time." He looked down at the model, eyes shining. There wasn't. Emily didn't say anything. Instead, she sat on the floor beside his chair, crossing her legs. The quiet between them wasn't hard. It was real, open. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel gave a small nod, the kind that showed a hurt too deep to speak about. "I wasn't angry at him," he said after a moment. "Not really. I was scared that something so easy to break could be broken again, and maybe that makes me not strong or just not ready." Emily reached out and placed her hand on his. "It makes you human," she said gently. He turned to look at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw a man no longer kept strong by showing off or staying away, but by thoughts of the past and worry and a strong, hurting desire to keep something true. And in that moment, neither of them said anything more. They just sat together in the stillness. Two people who had lost, who were slowly, silently learning what it meant to begin again. The days that followed that quiet night in the study moved with a kind of delicate beauty. There were no big secrets told, no grand announcements, but the air between Daniel and Emily had changed. Their looks stayed a little longer. Their quiet moments felt more important. Even Noah seemed to notice. He would grab Daniel's hand when they walked in the garden, or snuggle up on the couch between them during movie nights like they'd been doing it for years. Daniel found himself smiling again. Soft, involuntary smiles that crept in when Emily laughed or when Noah happily showed a crayon picture of their family. He didn't speak of the future, he didn't know how. But for the first time in years, he found peace right now. Then came the sound of someone at the gate. It was a Saturday afternoon. The house was quiet. Emily was in the kitchen making banana bread with Noah while Daniel reviewed some files in his study. The speaker system made a noise. The housekeeper answered, but her voice shook. "Sir, there's a man asking for Miss Emily. Says he's family." Daniel frowned. "Did she say anyone was visiting?" "No, sir, but he's demanding." Daniel stepped to the security monitor. The screen flickered to reveal a man standing at the gate, messy, nervous, with wild eyes and a tight jaw. There was something immediately wrong about him. "I'll handle it," Daniel said. But by the time he reached the front door, the man was gone. That night, Emily was quiet. Her hands shook as she folded towels. She jumped when Daniel called her name. He asked what was wrong, but she pretended it was nothing with a fake smile. "It's nothing, just tired." He let it go. He should not have. The next morning, Daniel rose early, expecting to find Emily and Noah at breakfast. But the guest house was empty. Their things were gone. The kitchen was quiet. No note on the table. No sound of laughter in the hallway. Panic rose quickly. He rushed back to the main house, calling the staff, searching every room. Then on the front steps, hidden under a small plant pot, he found the letter. It was written in tidy, fast writing. "Daniel, thank you for everything, for the safety, the kindness, the hope you gave me when I had none. But my past is caught up, and I won't let it take away your peace. You gave me a home. I can't let that become a battleground. Please don't look for me. Emily." His hands tightened around the paper. The words became unclear as anger and fear grew like a storm inside him. He crushed the paper, rushed angrily back inside, and insisted on knowing. It was the housekeeper who finally spoke. "I didn't think it was my place, sir, but I saw a man outside the guest house yesterday. He was yelling at her. She told him to leave. He scared her, said he'd take the boy. I was going to tell you, but I thought she could handle it." Daniel's jaw became firm. "He threatened to take Noah?" "Yes," she said. "If you don't get the money, I'll take him. I'll make sure you never see him again." Something inside Daniel broke. He walked back and forth, breathing hard. "Get the security camera videos. Every camera, every angle. I want his face." His voice was cold, but under it was fear, strong and choking. He had let them go. He had let them walk right back into danger. No, he would find them. He would bring them home, not just because he cared, but because they were his. Even if he hadn't spoken the feelings yet, even if he hadn't allowed himself to think it was true, they were his. And no one, no past, no man, no monster was going to take them from him. Rain fell heavily on the small town, soaking the old metal roofs and turning small paths into dirty streams. It was the kind of rain that made everything unclear. Lines on the road, reflections in the glass, even the fading parts of memory. But nothing could blur the moment Daniel saw her again. He had spent days searching, following whispered stories, watching video recordings, tracking money taken out and bus paths. And finally, a sleepy gas station worker in a small, dirty town had said quietly, "Yeah, there's a girl working at the diner down by the old train yard, came in last week with a kid." Now, standing across the street from the building with closed windows that had once been a warehouse, Daniel could see a quick little move behind the broken window. Inside, piled boxes formed a rough bed. A thin mattress was spread on the floor. Emily was there, hunched over a small heater, wrapped in a worn blanket. Noah was snuggled next to her, sleeping deeply. Daniel stepped forward, his wet shoes splashing through puddles. When she turned and saw him, her face turned white. She stood up quickly, her body stiff. "Daniel!" He didn't move. Emily stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind her, standing beneath the broken frame of a roof that gave no true cover. Rain hit her shoulders hard, her clothes already sticking to her skin. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, not looking at his eyes. "You shouldn't be here either." Her lip trembled. "I didn't know where else to go. You should have come home." Emily shook her head. "It's not your place to make my life better, Daniel. You gave us peace. I couldn't let my past ruin that." He stepped closer, the rain falling from his hair, running down his chin. "You think I care about peace more than I care about you?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came. "I've lost people before, Emily," he said, voice shaking. "I've stood at gravesides, held parts of my life in my hands, and watched them go away. I know what it's like to feel sad about what happened." Her eyes filled. "I just wanted to protect you. I thought if I left quietly—" "You didn't protect me," he interrupted, taking another step forward. "You broke me completely." She turned away as if she couldn't stand to look at him. "I'm sorry." Then she ran. Her bare feet made splashes through puddles. Her body moved through the rain like a spirit, disappearing into the narrow path behind the warehouse. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran after her. The rain was nonstop, making it hard to see, but he reached her halfway down the street. He held her wrist, not roughly, just to make her stop, and turned her to look at him. "Emily," he breathed hard, needing air. "Stop running." She shook her head, crying hard now, her chest moving up and down. "I don't know how." He pulled her into his arms. She fought for a second, then fell into him, her hands holding tightly to the back of his coat, her face hidden in his chest. The storm made loud noises around them, but all Daniel could hear was the sound of her breath, uneven and hopeless, and the beat of her heart against his own. "I've already lost one family," he whispered, tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks. "Don't make me lose another." Emily clung to him, crying harder now, every wall she'd built crumbling in the heavy rain. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly, "and you never will be again." They stood like that for a long time, completely wet, surrounded by loud noise and strong wind and past thoughts. But in that moment, in that hug, they were not running anymore. They were safe. The sun rose over the lake in a soft mix of gold and silver, the water smooth and calm, showing the first light of day like a secret slowly coming out. The storm had passed, not just the rain, but everything that had kept their lives covered in fear and not knowing. 2 weeks after Daniel found Emily, fairness came. With the help of a private detective and a smart law team, Daniel found all they needed. Security camera videos from the big house's cameras, what people saw and said from the housekeeper, scary messages found to be from Emily's ex. The evidence was very strong. Within days, the police issued an official paper. Emily's former husband was caught without any trouble, and for the first time in years, she breathed out without the heavy feeling of fear sitting on her chest. True freedom came not with a party, but a calm sigh of ease. Emily and Noah came back to the big house. Only this time they did not enter through the small house. Daniel welcomed them at the front steps of the main house. Noah ran to him without hesitation, and Emily followed slower, her hand holding the strap of her bag like it might all disappear if she let go. But it did not disappear. It only felt more true. Daniel had the east side of the house fixed up. New paint, soft carpets, a play area for Noah with a comfy window spot looking over the garden. Emily's favorite flowers now were placed along the back porch. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon again. It wasn't just safety anymore, it was home. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Daniel asked Emily to take a walk with him. They walked by the lake holding hands, Noah running in front with a toy boat, throwing flat rocks and laughing as if he'd never felt scared. The path bent around the water, leading to the same spot where Daniel had first talked openly to her about his parents, where he had once sat alone, wanting something more than quiet. Now he stood at that very place again, only this time he wasn't alone. He turned to her. Emily smiled gently, her eyes looking closely at his face. "Why do I feel like you brought me here for more than just fresh air?" Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, soft, furry box. Her breath caught. He opened it, showing a simple gold ring with a thin row of small, shiny stones. Nothing too much, just graceful, classic like her. "I've had a lot of things in this life, Emily," he said quietly. "Homes, power, riches, but nothing has ever felt like mine until you and Noah walked through that storm and entered my life." She said nothing, her hands over her mouth, tears starting to come to her eyes. "I don't just want to protect you," he continued. "I want to spend my whole life with you. I want to make something that stays strong, something my parents would have been proud of. I want to make a family, not because I have to, but because I choose to, because of love." He knelt down on one knee. "Emily," he whispered, "will you marry me?" Her tears spilled over. She nodded, filled with feeling, her voice shaky. "I've never believed I earned happiness. I thought love was for others. But you," she stepped closer, her fingers trembling as she touched his face, "you made me believe that maybe I'm good enough after all." He put the ring on her finger. She laughed while crying, and he stood, pulling her into a kiss as the sun shone on the water behind them. Noah, not knowing how important the moment was, shouted from the lake's edge, "Did Mommy say yes?" Emily pulled back, laughing, and called, "I did!" Daniel put an arm around her shoulders, and together they walked back along the lakeside toward the home that no longer felt too large or too silent or too empty, because now it was full of living, full of family, full of love. The garden was quiet that afternoon, covered in the gentle golden glow of the sun going down. Lanterns moved softly from tree branches, their gentle light shining like tiny stars. Lines of wood chairs sat among blooming flowers, their flower parts bright and open, as if they too were there to see something special. The wedding was little, only a few important people, dear friends, some staff who were now like family, and the minister who knew Daniel from before he had many heavy life worries. The event wasn't about showing off. It was about being there, getting better, and having hope. Emily walked into the garden without shoes, her dress plain and soft, like the sky before morning. She had made some of it herself, with fine needlework on the sleeves, a small heart sewn inside the bottom edge where no one could spot it. It was the loveliest thing Daniel had ever seen, not because of fancy cloth or style or cost, but because she wore it as if she had at last become the person she was always supposed to be. Noah stood tall in a tiny suit next to Daniel at the start of the path, his necktie a bit off-center, his shoes a little dirty from playing outside earlier. But when he saw his mom, he made his shoulders straight and smiled big. Soft music played, a song without words that Emily used to sing quietly in the kitchen. The guests stood up. She walked slowly and firmly to the two people who were now her whole world. Daniel took her hand when she got there, his eyes showing everything he could never say out loud. She smiled back, tears already falling, and whispered, "Hi." "Hi," he answered, almost breaking down. Their promises were not the usual kind. They came from nights awake, chatting on the porch, telling parts of sad pasts, hoping for happy futures. "I promise to be the secure place you never found," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "To be with you when hard times hit, to enjoy every normal morning, to love you not because I have to, but because I can't stop myself." Emily took a breath, her voice strong. "I promise I'll never leave again. To deal with problems with you, not by myself. To believe even when it's tough. You gave me back my ability to speak, my self-worth, my happiness." Then Noah had his turn. He stood on a small step, holding a card he wrote himself, and read with proud confidence. "Mom used to cry when it was dark, but now she smiles in the light. Mr. Daniel makes her happy, and she makes him banana bread. So that's love, I guess. I'm happy we're a group now." The guests laughed softly through their tears. Daniel dabbed his eyes. Emily hugged Noah for a kiss on his forehead. When they were officially married, there was no big cheer, just quiet claps, teary smiles, and the sense that something truly good had just happened. That night, as the sun slowly went down behind the trees, the family of three sat together at a long wood table under the open sky. Dishes of cooked vegetables, new bread, and happy sounds were shared among them. Candles glowed softly, flowers filled the night air with their smell. Noah put his head on Emily's shoulder, getting sleepy. Daniel reached over the table and held her hand. They sat like that for a long time, just looking at the sky change. Light purples, soft oranges, a gold line that seemed to go on forever towards the edge of the sky. No one talked. They didn't need to. They had been hurt in different ways, lost in different troubles. But they had found each other. One wet night, one scared question, one kind act at a time. And now they were not flawless, but they were together. And for them, that meant everything. As the sun went down on their calm garden wedding and three hearts beat as one under the soft light of lamps, we are reminded that love doesn't always come with a big show. Sometimes it comes as a stranger in a storm, a small good deed, or a promise made under the weight of past hurts. Emily, Daniel, and Noah taught us that family isn't about being perfect, but about being there for each other. That getting better is possible, and that sometimes the people we are meant to find appear just when we've stopped thinking anyone ever would. If this story moved you, made you think of the strength of kindness, and made you believe in new starts again, please think about joining Soul-Stirring Stories. We give you real, touching, and hopeful tales that remind us all No matter how dark it gets, love always finds a path. Thank you for reading, and remember, some stories don't finish. They start right where the sad tears fall. Music.